Hey, welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse, your host and your guide. We're here this Memorial Day weekend. We're looking at mental health. I know it's not a really upbeat kind of discussion, but it's important to you. A woman diagnosed with a mood disorder was prescribed the drug called Lamictal, a medication used to treat epilepsy and mood disorders. Initially, there appeared to be no side effects, but when the dosage was increased, this woman developed a fever, and she began foaming in the inside of her mouth. During a trip to the emergency room, doctors chalked her symptoms up to the flu. But over the course of 2 days, her condition worsened. Her website explains it, says she woke up covered in a purplish rash and blisters. She had blisters inside her eyes, her mouth, inside the palms of her hands, the bottoms of her feet. She described how she felt by saying, "I was in excruciating pain. It felt like I was on fire." Doctors were initially unable to determine what was wrong, but after being transported to the medical center of Central Georgia, she was eventually diagnosed with a rare skin disorder, diagnosed with toxic epidermal necropolis, a more severe form of Stevens-Johnson syndrome. The article goes on to point out others who suffered in similar ways, their face and body covered with permanent discoloration, evidence of scarring. There were pictures. The Mayo Clinic says Stevens-Johnson syndrome is often caused by an adverse reaction to a medication. In my own family, personally, there was one who was on this drug for 7 years, misdiagnosed, by the way, and for the last half of that time was suicidal, living a largely hopeless existence. And for what? A chemical imbalance, an adverse reaction to living contrary to the way life must be lived, a response to severe trauma or emotional strain. Those are really the only options we have. And the medical community, primarily the psychological, psychiatric branch, is constantly looking for chemical compounds that are going to mask our bad feelings and physiological responses. Wouldn't it be simpler and cheaper to simply live the way God ordained? The drug in question is a drug called Lamictal. Look it up. It will be important to your survival in the future. What is really going on in a person's life and in their body, in their mind, as they are having these hallucinations, or they're having these really strange things, or this horrible depression, or whatever it is that's pushing at them, or they just are erratic in all different ways? What is really going on here? And a psychiatrist, a psychologist might be able to pinpoint it if you can live long enough and spend enough money and stay with them. But I'm telling you, at 45 or 50 minutes a session every couple of weeks or so, it's going to take a while to figure out what's going on, let alone how to fix it. And you have biological psychiatrists, and you have, I forgot what the other kind is called. The biologicals get in, they have a lab coat. They do drugs. And the other does counseling. I lost that word. They don't believe you need chemicals. They think you need, just to change your lifestyle. They can prescribe, and that would be good. Sometimes you need something to sleep, but not these heavy-duty things. But the responsible counselor is going to stop. They're going to try to figure out what's pushing at you that is out of the ordinary, isolate that and say, okay, let's see what we can do to calm that down. But at the same time, they're going to look at your eat and sleep cycles. Not every eat-sleep cycle is healthy. And if you don't get enough sleep, some people go nuts. They're going to look at what you eat, what you drink. Are these things creating or inducing exotic responses to your body, to the chemistry in your body? They're going to look at the decisions of life that don't create more problems than they solve, as opposed to those that do. They're going to look at your relationships. Which ones are healthy? Which ones are destructive? And they're going to refuse to give in to the idea that all of these things don't matter. No, these things are critical. And we're going to try to encourage you, not to give in to destructive feelings and destructive behaviors. It's a package. It's a process. Now, many folks with what's been called mental disorders are largely people who refuse to live the way God has prescribed. This is not a blanket diagnosis. There are exceptions. Just not as many as you might have been led to believe. Where do so many of our so-called mental problems come from? They come from a chaotic lifestyle. It might be in the society in which you live, your family, your extended family, your neighborhood, your friends, whatever it might be. There may be just a whole lot of chaos going on here. And human beings don't do well with chaos. It might be your diet, it might be drugs, it might be fears, some of which are real, most of which aren't. We should tell the kids the thing you fear the most is the thing that will never happen to you. No, go ahead, worry. Worry about it. 99.9% of the things you worry about never happen. But somehow I'm worried. Don't worry about something you can't change. Don't worry about something that hasn't happened. Stop fearing so much. The social conflict. How many of us have married into chaos? We are two different people that just can't get together. Or how many have married into a situation where one is very outgoing and social and the other is like a bump on a log, doesn't ever want to go out, and lots of different kinds of things are going on in relationships, not just marriage, but outside. What about addictions? And it's more than just chemicals. There's addiction to pornography. There's addiction to pain. Some people just can't live unless they have pain in their life. There are physical maladies that are diagnosed as psychological. And somewhere along the way, somebody wakes up and realizes, oh, wait a minute, it's not physical. Or, hey, it is physical. The very term mental, as in mental disorder, is deceitful. It's not even a good word to use. It doesn't mean what you think it means. The psychological community insists on referring to your mind as being your brain. The mind is where your decisions are made, and they're not being made in your brain. Why the studies on brain chemistry? Well, because brain chemistry does get out of whack and it does strange things. But why is it out of whack? There are computations occurring in the brain, electrical impulses stimulating this part of your body and that part of your body. But your mind, the mind of a human being, is their heart. Not the pump in your chest, but the immaterial core of your being that governs personality and it governs decisions. The Bible calls it our soul. The soul is far more central to who and to what we are than is the brain. But the terminologies employed by the so-called experts are designed to simplify the source and give impression that these people actually know what's going on and they can fix it, which they never claim to be able to do. you're going to have therapy the rest of your life. That's what they'll tell you. I might release you because you are able to function, but you're never going to change. You stop doing what you've been doing, you'll go right back to what you were. Think about your medical doctor prescribing a chemical for something he really knows nothing about, but is convinced that it'll help you. Help what? Well, he doesn't really know what it is that he's trying to help here. To do what? Well, he's really not sure what any medication is going to do in your body. To accomplish what end? Well, to make you comfortable, to help you be more social or more functional. What about healing it? Well, there's really no healing for a broken mind, whatever that is. There's only the ability to live with whatever it is that's driving you crazy. You ever see people on serious psychological medication? They're not connected to reality, but they sure do feel better. Now, I know all this is exaggerated, and I'm the first to admit it. Yes. It's not wrong. It's just make it look as bad as we can. Because not everybody responds exactly as I've described. However, if they should take the medications, continue living against the grain of life, they will respond this way because the medications will be increased or they'll be given something stronger and stronger until they have to be hospitalized. Biological psychiatry is a scam. Why? Well, because these people are not as certain as they pretend to be. Their own people, researchers, chemists attest to this all the time. Listen to them. Read what they have to say. We don't. Consistently, those in the laboratories are not nearly as certain as the people in the white lab coats sitting across the desk collecting the money. As you pour out your tale of woe, they're not as certain as those people are that what they're telling you or what they're giving you is going to work. If they were honest, they'd tell you, John, I have no way of knowing what's really going on inside of you. I just met you. And I know you haven't told me everything. I don't have time to get to know you and understand what you're really going through. But here's a pill. Take 2 of these a day and come see me next week. And that for $100 or $175 an hour for a 45-minute hour over the next few years until we're able to really understand, refine the meds and make your life a little more useful. Is that what they're doing? You say, no, come on, it's not like that. Anecdotal, clearly. But I had a woman in my church years and years ago. A viable woman, older woman. Her husband was gone. She was working for the government. And one day she just stopped functioning. I didn't see it coming. She wasn't telling me anything. She was kind of a quiet soul. But at some point she just stopped coming to church. And of course you start asking the questions and you find out some things. And next thing you know, I went to see this lady. She was sitting in her living room in the dark, middle of the day. All the drapes closed, no lights on. It was dark in there. No television, no music, no nothing. She's by herself in a rocking chair and she's just rocking. Well, hey, what's going on? And she told me this story and all the thing and then. Well, are you seeing a doctor? Yeah, I go to a psychiatrist every week or every couple of weeks, whatever it is. And well, what's he doing? He's giving me medication. And well, what are you taking? And she gave me some things that she was taking. I prayed with her and I left. I went home. We didn't have computers in those days. I whipped out my PDR, Physician's Desk Reference, great big thick book. And I looked up her drug. And sure enough, in the top 10 or so indications, her situation was listed right there. But you see, I'd been doing this long enough to know, get beyond the first 10 or 20. Get down into the small print. There are probably 100 indications or reactions or different kinds of things these drugs are doing. They only deal with the main ones that are really knocking at people's door a lot, but there's always these other things. Way down in the bottom of the list were symptoms of this drug, this chemical, that were identical to what she was going through from a psychiatrist at a hospital. I went back and I said, you need to go to your doctor and ask him if there's some way you can't get off this medication. You can't just stop some of these things. You got to use your head. She did that, and he was willing to wean her off of this. And over the next month, I think it was, she got back off of those drugs. Halfway through that, she was back in church, driving her own car. At the end of the month, she was back to work, and everything was what it was before. Anecdotal. There are millions of these little stories out there. And I'm not saying the psychiatrist can't help you. I'm just saying pay attention. Your brain is not your mind. Your mind is making decisions. The Bible calls it your heart. In the next section, we're going to talk about biblical counseling and some of the issues there. You stay with us.